Backing up and restoring, both critical elements for anybody's Bitcoin e-wallet. Let's begin. Our objective in this nugget is simple. It's how do we back up our wallet to make sure it's safe, and how do we verify that we can restore it if we need to. So here's what I'd like you to do. Imagine that you've got a wallet with 20,000 Bitcoin. That wallet could be one of a couple places. It could be sitting on your PC, or your Mac, or your Linux box, and it could be sitting, you could have the entire blockchain on your computer and your wallet.dat, which contains your private keys. Now, if that's the case, if it's sitting here, we definitely want to use the encryption option in the client. We'd also want to save the content on an encrypted volume, and we'd also want to have a backup somewhere not in the same physical location as this PC. That way, if the data is destroyed at one location, we want to make sure we have an encrypted copy of a backup at a second physical location. So on a personal computer of some type, we definitely want to have it encrypted and backed up so we can get back to it. Secondly, if our wallet is up at blockchain.info, they don't actually store the plain text private keys. They don't even know what they are. They have an encrypted flavor of those that they store. They have backups on cloud services, but it's actually our password as we log into our account that on the fly decrypts the private keys that we can then use to go ahead and make transactions out of our account. So it's our responsibility, whether or not we have the wallet.dat file locally or we have our wallet in an e-wallet service, it's our responsibility to make sure we back it up and to make sure we can restore it. Here's what I learned in my early days of networking. I learned that customers, let's say this is a happy user and he's connected to a network and that network has some hockey pucks attached to it. Those are routers. You know what routers do for a living? Or routers, depending on what part of the world you're in. They route. They move traffic from one location to another. So let's say we have the user, a couple of routers, and connected to the internet or some other big network. And this happy user, he's sending all his traffic, and maybe the router A is moving all the traffic for him back and forth. Life is good. If this router goes belly up, there's a physical problem, a cable gets unplugged, the smoke lets out of it, whatever. The second router, if it's set up for fault tolerance, can go ahead and support the user. And that's fantastic. So then the traffic would go this way. And the user is happy. They call it fault tolerance because the network had a fault, but it had backup systems to tolerate that fault. So hence the term fault tolerance in a computer network. Well, in the Bitcoin network, I'm not too concerned about the actual network itself because there's tens of thousands of computers involved in the Bitcoin network. The miners managing the blockchain, finding that next block and adding it to the chain. So because there's fault tolerance there, that's not a problem. I'm mostly concerned about our wallet file, especially yours, if it's got 20,000 of Bitcoin associated with one of the keys in your wallet. So how exactly do we back it up? So what I'd like to do is walk you through the steps if we're using blockchain.info to not only back it up, but also to restore it. Here's what I've discovered in the world of fault tolerance and computer networks is that if a company has to be up 24/7, they spend a lot of time, effort, and money in building fault tolerance in their systems. But they don't just put it in. They also put in the fault tolerance and then they test it. It's so important that you and I practice with our backups and restores before we actually have a real account with real significant value that we're trying to make sure we can restore. The time to find out whether or not a backup works is not after you lose the data. It's way, way before. So most companies in their backup systems, they're going to actually test those periodically to make sure in measurable terms that they really can do a restore of their data and get back to the point they were before they had the data loss. That's our objective for you and I. We want to make sure we can back up our wallets and make sure we can restore them successfully, practice it with accounts that don't have a lot of Bitcoin in them, and that way you and I can be more comfortable in a production environment where we have real Bitcoin on the line and we absolutely want to keep it safe. Let's start by making a road trip up to blockchain.info to take a look at our backup and restore options. In our little test account, we have the homepage, and right on the homepage, once you log on, it's got the backup options. It's like saying, please make backups of your wallet. And we have 4 options. Download. If I click on download, it's actually downloading to my browser right here. So in my case, I have a downloads folder and all my files go there automatically that I download off the internet. It's sitting there. So this wallet.aes.json file is an encrypted copy of my wallet as it currently sits with all the addresses and private keys associated with it. All of it's encrypted. So even though it's sitting here on my computer, my downloads folder, unless somebody also has my key that I use to actually log into blockchain.info, they won't be able to decrypt that data and make sense of any of the text that's inside it, which includes my private keys and my addresses and everything else. So that's one option for backing up. Another great option is Dropbox. If you click on Dropbox, the first time it'll ask you for permission, your account information to go ahead and log in, and it'll back it up to a Dropbox drive. We also have the Google Drive option and email. So there's 4 different methods of backing it up. And no matter which option we choose, it's going to store the encrypted copy of that backup. So now I've got this wallet.aes.json. It's in my downloads folder. And that'll serve great for our backup. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and go to receive money. And let's take a couple of these addresses and their private keys and let's remove them from our wallet. So how exactly do we pull that off? I'm going to take the Brain wallet here and let's go to Actions and say I want to archive that. And the holding tank, I'm going to go to Actions and Archive Address. So those aren't really gone. They're just not active. They're still part of my wallet. If I go to Archived, here they are. And they both have 0.002 Bitcoin associated with them. Now, if you're going to remove addresses, you want to totally get rid of them, what you could do is you simply highlight these and click on Delete Keys. So if we delete the keys and we don't have a backup copy of those private keys anywhere, they are effectively gone. So here's what I recommend. If you are going to remove some keys, definitely don't leave money associated with them. So what you can do is click on highlight these, click on sweep keys. It'll say, great, where do you want to move the money to? And this will give you any addresses that are currently active inside your wallet. So if I clicked on this and I clicked on continue, it would take the 0.002 out of each of those addresses and the respective private keys, and it would sweep it over to this address, the savings address. So I'm going to click on cancel. I'm going to leave these here because I want to show you how the backup works. Now before we delete these with actual Bitcoin value associated with them, I want to make sure that I've got my backup, which I do right here, and we're going to use that for this demonstration. I'm going to click on delete keys. And it says, do you want to delete just the private key or do you want to delete the private key and the address? I'm going to say, go ahead and get rid of all of it. You are getting poorer and poorer as you count down to 0. Once we go down to 0, if we didn't have a backup, we're pretty much out of luck. So it says it's synchronized. I always like hitting this little button right here just to verify that it's all synchronized. And now I have one active address, no archived. And if nobody else has copies of those private keys, any Bitcoin, no matter what quantity associated with those addresses, they are no longer available. It's like lost coins down the drain that no one's going to have access to. So how do we restore that? There's actually 2 ways of restoring that. Number one is we could go to import export right here and click on I understand, put in our password, which we've done, click on continue, and then it says for importing, I could go ahead and I could import from a backup. Now this import backup right here, this is the backup that blockchain is doing for us. Isn't that great? Anytime we make changes, it's going to back up our wallet for us. In the cloud, it's encrypted, so we could restore from here. But this does not relieve you and I from the responsibility of having our own backups. Like for example, how do we know exactly what they backed up? Did they back up the archived keys that we deleted, or did they back up just the active keys? The answer is hopefully they backed up everything, but our goal is, for you and I, is to take total ownership of our own backups for our own wallet. So even though this option's here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go to import wallet. If I open that file, here it is, wallet.aes.json. If I open that up with WordPad, it's just a whole bunch of text. So what I could do is I could take this, right click, copy it, and just paste it right in here. And then go ahead and click on import wallet. And it's saying, okay, to do this, I need your password. So we'll put that in again. And click on continue. And we should have a little mention up here saying wallet successfully synced with server. And it should be totally there again. Now let's see if that played out. Let's go to receive money. And back at receive money, if we go to active, there is our accounts again. There's the Brain wallet, the holding tank, and the savings. So it's completely restored to our backup state before we actually deleted it. And we have the keys again. So now with the Brain wallet or holding tank, we can work with those keys, act with them, no problem, life is good. Now, we still have that backup, and here's another way we could use that same backup. Let's go ahead and take Brain wallet this time. Let's send him over to being archived. We're not going to sweep the Bitcoin away from that account, although if we were really getting rid of those keys forever, we definitely want to associate the Bitcoin with another address rather than the ones we're deleting. But let's go ahead and delete that one. And we're going to delete everything. And we've got 10 seconds. So as it counts down, no problem. So this time, Brain Wallet, its address and private key are now deleted off of the blockchain.info site. Fantastic. And let's take a look at yet another way that we could restore that. Now, we took a look at going to import-export, but another way is this. I'm going to go ahead and log out. Let's say you forgot your identifier, which is this long string, or you forgot your alias. You can't remember what it is. You can go ahead and if you click on Forgot Identifier, you can go ahead and put your email address, the one you have associated with your account, and they will email you the identifier. Now, it's not your password that you're using to get in, but it's simply the way to get the ball rolling. Let's go back one. The import backup does two basic things. Number one, let's say we forgot our identifier and we forgot our alias. Like, I can't remember what it is. I know what my password is, but I just don't remember my alias or my identifier. We can import a backup, and that can facilitate us logging back in, even if we don't remember what our identifier is. And here's how it works. We take our wallet file, and we drag it over right here. This is our backup. So this is that backup that we just downloaded from the browser. Drag it here. It says, okay, what's your password for the wallet? I remember my password. So we put that in, hopefully correctly, and click on Continue. And now it says, okay, great. Now I want you to choose a new password. Now, if you want to, you could actually change your password at this point. It says, okay, you had the encrypted wallet file. You had the password to decrypt that wallet. You've got these keys. You want to create a new password. I'm going to use the same old password. So if you use the same exact password, nobody's going to complain saying, hey, that's the same password you used previously. You can go ahead and use the same exact one. It has to be at least 10 characters in length. The longer, the better. And we'll click on Continue. And now it wants to know, are you a real human or is this a brute force attack? Some just computer trying over and over and over again. I'm going to say I'm a human, and I can prove it by 7M3NN. And this little line horizontally across there is just for distracting any kind of optical character recognition. So if that's correct, I'll click on Continue. So let's take a look at what really happened when we use this import backup. And you might be thinking, well, Keith, I saw what happened. We clicked the button. It asks us to drag and drop a backup file into it. It asks us for the password so it could decrypt the keys. And then it asks us for a new password. Simple, no problem. But what really happened, though, is it actually created a brand new account for us. Let's say our old account that we had forgotten what the identifier was. Let's say the identifier was ABC123, blah, 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 huge thing. And let's say the new one is right here, which it is. So the new identifier for this new account is this. So if I log on to the old account with the old password, it'll let me in. No problem whatsoever, still sitting there. If I want to log on to the new account, I would use this identifier and whatever new password I specified. Now here's the interesting thing. They both have copies of my keys. Both of them. Now, if this was a bank, there would be some some issues going on with people saying, hey, you can't have the same exact dollar or euro or whatever it is. You can't have that same exact amount of money, the same entity, in two different accounts. For example, in the United States, if we have $1, a dollar bill, you can have it either in Bank 1 or Bank 2, but you can't have the same dollar in two different banks unless you're a government agency, and they probably do that all the time. But for us average mortals, you can't have it twice. Well, inside of these two accounts, they have the keys. So as an example, let's say that we have a total of a whopping 2.00 BTC. That's how much Bitcoin we have associated with our keys, and this account both have access to the keys. So if we log into either one and we do a transfer, so I'll put this in red. So we're sending out, let's say, 1 Bitcoin. So we send 1 Bitcoin from either account. The Bitcoin network knows exactly that that money was sent. It'll verify the transaction. It'll become part of the blockchain. And both accounts, the respective keys, will have not 2 Bitcoin left, but now they'll have 1 Bitcoin left. So if we had 20 different accounts and they all had the same private keys, our private keys, we could only spend Bitcoin that's ours. As we began this 2 Bitcoin, we could only spend that once. And if we spend one of those Bitcoin, we have 1 left. You can only spend that 1 Bitcoin once. You can't spend it 2 or 3 times simply because you have the keys in different locations. So let's go ahead and log back in. And now we've logged in. If we go to receive money, there's our 3 addresses and the private keys behind the scenes, all sitting there ready for us to go. So as far as restoring, there's two basic options we can use. One is from the main page that we just did, and the other is from the import export, where we actually import the wallet, which brings it back in, and now we can use it inside of blockchain.info. In this nugget, we've taken a look at some backup options in the world of blockchain.info, which include, do you remember what they are? Is download from a browser, we have Dropbox, we have Google Drive, and we also have the email option. And if we do the email option, we definitely want to make sure in account settings that we give it our email address. Makes it a lot easier for them to email you something if you actually have provided that email address. For restoring it, we have two basic options. If we're logged in already, we can go to import export and say, I want to import wallet. And then we refer to that backup that we have, whether it was emailed to us, whether it was downloaded from our browser, Google Drive, or in our Dropbox. And then we're going to restore that wallet and its keys as it was in the state that we backed it up in. The other option is if we're not even logged in yet. There's a button called Import Backup. That gives us that screen where we can drag and drop the file. It's going to ask us for the appropriate password for that account, and that's yet another way to get our keys back into blockchain.info. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to practice this. Now, the easiest way to do that is to log in, which I currently have here, go to Receive Money, and then click on this option right here called New Address. Just create a brand new address. Let's do it real quick, and we'll call it Test. Once you create this new address called Test, go to Wallet Home, and then back it up. I'm going to use Download, and that's going to download that backup. Now that backup, just as you take a look at it, that backup I called it wallet.aes with the parentheses 2.json because I already had a previous one that we just did in this demo. So if I restore this, I might want to edit that and get rid of the parentheses 2. So it's just wallet.aes.json. Now that that's backed up to that file, let me go back to Receive Money. And once back at Receive Money, let's go ahead and take this test address, which has no Bitcoin in it. We'll go to Actions, we'll archive it. And once it's archived, we'll verify it's there, and then we'll delete it. To delete it, say Delete Keys. It'll say, do you want to delete the private key only or all of it? I want to say, I'm going to delete the private key and the address, get rid of all of it. It's going to go away, and then we'll go back to restore it. Now, the restore option, you can do it in any way you want to. If you want to do it from before you log on or you want to do it from the import-export, either way is going to be great. Since we're already logged in, let's go to import-export. Click on Continue. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say import wallet, and I'm going to take that file. This is the wallet.aes2.json. I'm going to open that up with a text editor. So here's that file right there. This is the one we just downloaded a few moments ago. Control A to select all, Control C to copy, at least on Windows, and then I'm going to go back to here and paste it in. Once it's pasted in, I'm going to scroll down and click on Import Wallet, confirm that it's synced up, and go back to Receive Money, and our test is once again restored. That, my friends, is what I would like you to practice with, just to get comfortable with the backup and the restore process. Once you've done it through a download of your internet browser, maybe try it with Dropbox, maybe try it with an email that's been sent to you, just to increase that comfort level that you know that you've got that backup that you can confidently restore if the need arises. I have had a great time, and I appreciate you joining me. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.